Hey everyone, my name is Emma Grace and today I'm going to be tier ranking every single book that I read in the year 2025. Happy New Year, we're in 2026. Thank God, a new year, a fresh start. Yay. And what better way to celebrate a fresh start than to ruminate on the past. Today I'm going to be tier ranking all of the books that I read in the year 2025. I say all of the books like it was some exorbitant amount. It was not. I read 26 books in the year of 2025, which is not my best. In fact, it's one of my worst. But there were extenuating circumstances. Those extenuating circumstances being a couple of mental breakdowns. But looking at this list, I did read some really good books this year that I'm excited to talk about, and I'm really excited for the tier ranking format. It'll be so nice just for me to have like a visual representation of where I stand on the books that I read this year. Like, it's gonna be great. I'm really excited. I hope this is exciting for you. I love watching tier ranking videos. Honestly, 90% of the content I watch is tier ranking. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the ranking system. Let me show you the girls, show you the categories. Before we do that, I need to turn on my screen recording because I could easily see myself filming this whole video and forgetting to turn on the screen recording. This is very high tech for me. All right, so we're gonna take a break from rewatching Degrassi, and here's my tier list, and here are my tiers. So the top tier category is called Quinn going into active labor while vocal adrenaline performs Bohemian Rhapsody at regionals. This category is for stuff that is perfectly written. Everything about the book just works in harmony. It is so astoundingly good. It will live with me forever. I will think about it forever. I go on the daily thinking about it. That's what this category is for. And just as I often think about the season 1 finale of Glee, these books will live on in my mind and in my heart long after I've read them. So yeah, that's the top tier. The second tier from the top is called Gorgeous Gorgeous Girl. This is like, I would say, for the solid 4-star reads, for the like really good books I read, the ones that were really great, like I really thoroughly enjoyed them. Maybe they weren't like my top favorite books of all time, but I really enjoyed them. They were solid. Well, okay then. This is for the mid-tier. This is kind of just books that honestly I either forgot or didn't really enjoy or just thought were okay. Second from the bottom, we have I Think You're Really Mean. This is in reference to the song by Lily Allen. It's not fair and I think you're really mean. This is for the disappointments. The ones that are like a really hot guy that's bad in bed. I'm gonna be honest, I saw Dylan Joseph do a video and he had a tier called The Really Hot Guy Who's Bad in Bed, and I was like, that's such a good way of describing it. But I didn't want to steal it, so I just stole a Lily Allen lyric instead. I don't think that makes me any more original. I Think You're Really Mean is just for the ones that I had such high hopes for, and then they really, really let me down. Yeah. And then bottom tier is If I Could, I Would Give You a 0, which is of course in reference to the legendary Tyra Banks, who is now making hot ice cream in Sydney, Australia. If I Could, I Would Give You a 0 is for the books that I rated 1 star, my least favorite books of the year. Yeah. First we have Love Story by Eric Segal. I'm gonna put this in well okay then. I feel like it was just okay. And I know it's a classic. I was on my solo trip in Paris and I saw Love Story and I said, this feels like a book that I read in Paris. And I actually, you know what? This is going in Gorgeous Gorgeous Girl just because I had the best time reading this in Paris. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. I do make the rules. This is my video. So that's why I'm doing this. Did I enjoy this book as much as the tier I'm putting it in would suggest? No. However, I did read this over the best meal of my life. You know what? No, it's going back into well okay then. I'm not gonna be like that. Yeah, this is going into well okay then just because I feel like it was okay. I love you means never having to say I'm sorry is something that I work to parse through every single day of my life. I'm like, what the fuck did you mean by that, Eric Segal? Like, explain it to me like I'm a child. As a chronic over-apologizer, I have never understood anything less. So there's something about that really, I don't know, it lives with me. It sticks with me. It's polarizing. It strikes a chord. But other than that, like, the characters weren't too memorable. It's told from the perspective of like the most insufferable dude. It is really short, so it's really quick to read. And the song by Andy Williams in the movie it really goes hard. If you haven't looked up Where Do I Begin by Andy Williams and just streamed it ever, it's a good crash out song, you know? It really is. Okay, next we have To Paradise by Hanya Yanagihara. I'm gonna put this in Gorgeous Gorgeous Girl. I really liked this book. It took me a long time to read. It is a really long book. It follows these interwoven stories across 3 centuries. So you first follow characters in like the 1800s, then you follow characters in the present day, and then you follow characters in the future. And it's set in this alternate version of New York. Hanya Yanagihara writes beautifully, and there's always something so melancholy about her overall tone. The subject matter is, of course, just so intense and serious, but something about her writing also really captures that feeling. It's just, there's something about her style that is so distinctive. I didn't like it as much as I like A Little Life, but I did really like it. It was really good. Next we have Isola. Isola is also going into Gorgeous Gorgeous Girl. I listened to this one on audiobook while I was at work and I was held rapt. And this is actually based on a true story. It's the true story of a woman in like the 1400s, Marguerite de la Roque, who was basically cast away on an island, and she survived for like 2 years. And if you're not interested in this book, if you're not interested in historical fiction, I still would recommend that you look up this story because they actually don't know a ton about her. So there's like it's not a lot of heavy reading to do. It's really quick. You can get an idea of the story. It's an incredible story. It's one of those stories that was just never canonized and was like lost to the annals of time, and we don't talk about it in history. What is this PN that's in the middle of my screen that I'm just noticing? Anyways, but yeah, this book was really good. It was really gripping. I will say I wasn't like totally into the love story romance aspect of it. A historical fiction romance is never really my vibe. There's something that's just so deeply unromantic about the past to me. The gender dynamics were so like ugh, that like I don't vibe with like a historically accurate romance. Next up we have The 3 Lives of Kate K. I'm gonna put this in I Think You're Really Mean. I also read this one on audiobook. This one to me, it just read so much like The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. You can write a book about like a famous figure who's an enigma without drawing comparisons to The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This book just felt like it was trying to mimic some of the magic of The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and it didn't have the same charisma or charm or like X factor. Like there's something just so gripping about The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. How many times am I gonna say that? There's something so gripping about that book. Like I remember finishing it in like 2 days. Like I was hooked. But this one just didn't have me hooked, and I didn't really care too much for any of the characters. I thought the story, like the whole idea that like this author who writes under a pseudonym is so fascinating to people. It's just like there's so many authors that write under pseudonyms, and like the extent of public interest that goes into it is like, oh, they write under a pseudonym, I wonder who they are. And like that's there's no real like obsession with authors who remain anonymous. Like Frida McFadden, people like her books. People are like, she writes under a pseudonym. I've heard that she's like a brain surgeon. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've heard. So I did have to suspend my disbelief for a little bit of it, which I'm not too fond of doing these days. I kind of like to just fully immerse myself. We're in for kind of a bad stretch here, I have to say. There's going to be some hateration, there's going to be a little bit of negativity for the next little while, and then we'll get into some positivity, okay? Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. If I could, I would give you a 0. I'm so sorry. I think this was possibly my least favorite book of the year. Part of Your World, I was not having fun, and I couldn't even gaslight myself into doing so, and I am very good at gaslighting myself. I just was not a huge fan of the writing. I think that was my main thing. I felt like I was reading a journal. It just felt like there was no artistic flair to the writing. Like, you can do amazing things with words. Like, language is incredible. And I felt like this book just uses language to get to point A to point B. The main guy, he was just a little bit too perfect. I try and be, you know, realistic. I look at where I was in my life when I was reading this, and I was like, was I in any place to be like, this man's too perfect? No. Like, I think we need to hold men to a much higher standard than we do. That being said, this man is just like, he's so unbelievably perfect. Like, he has no flaws. He cooks. He's like good with tools. He's respectful. He's not, and like, yes, I would love that in a man. He has no like nothing wrong with him. There's no flaws. So this is just me. If I could, I would give you 0. But you know, Part of Your World is not going to be alone in that tier for long, because Talking at Night is also going to go, and if I could, I would give you a 0. I think it's a little bit above Part of Your World. This book just really, it was marketed as like being perfect for fans of normal people, and I love normal people, but it just, again, it's the same thing with The 3 Lives of Kate K, where it feels a little bit like a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a parody, it's a, oh my gosh, what's the word for, oh, a pastiche, a pastiche. It just feels like it's trying to mimic what normal people did so well, and it just doesn't yield as great of an end result, because, you know, the thing about normal people is that it's not even like a particularly like original groundbreaking story, but it's so well executed, and there's so many little details in the writing and in the story that make it so unique. And Talking at Night, it also feels like it really draws, from what I remember, I don't remember a ton, it feels like it kind of takes these like big heartbreaking things that happen and like solely relies on the inherent heartbreak of the situation to generate an emotional response, instead of using the writing to do that, and instead of developing characters that you really care about in order to evoke an emotional response. And I also remember I did not like the ending. Like, I did not like the resolution of this book. You know, when you don't want the resolution that's supposed to happen, and like then I feel like the book has failed in some way if that happens. So unfortunately, Talking at Night is not my favorite one. Next we have The English Patient. I'm gonna put this in well okay then. I think it's between these two. I'm gonna be nice though and put it in well okay then. You know what, it's going in I Think You're Really Mean. I'm sorry, I have to be honest, I have to live my truth. I read this book because in February I was feeling like I want to read a book about love, and I want to read something that's really romantic, but I don't want to read like a classic romance. Like, I want to read something that just the pages are filled with love. I went on Reddit and somebody recommended The English Patient, and after reading The English Patient, I have to question that person just a little bit. There's something that just always feels a little bit harsh and brash about saying you were bored reading a book, but I was bored reading it, and that's really the only reason I have for not liking this book. Okay, next we have Book Lovers. This one is also an in-between one. It's between Gorgeous Gorgeous Girl and Well Okay Then, but I'm gonna put it in well okay then. I really loved the first half. If I had enjoyed the whole book as much as I enjoyed the first half, it would easily be in Gorgeous Gorgeous Girl. But it's in well okay then because I just wasn't a huge fan of the second half. Again, I think romance is not my genre. I know that like for a book to be a romance book, it has to have a happy ending. And I do find there's something to be very comforting about the fact that no matter what goes wrong in the plot, no matter what conflict there is, you know they're gonna get together. Like, that is a comforting thought. But the thing is, I feel like when you're writing a romance book where, you know, you have that like break into the third act with the conflict that tears the main couple apart, you really have to make that conflict seem natural, but it also has to be something that's like kind of not predictable. Like, I feel like with a lot of like conflicts, you can like see exactly where the story is heading. I think a good romance book is such an art, and it's such a challenge to write, because you want to give the reader that sense of like everything's gonna work out in the end, it's all gonna be okay, but you also have to create a little bit of tension for it to be truly enjoyable. And unfortunately, Book Lovers is just one that I found like really predictable, and like once the characters got together in the middle of the book, I was just like, but I did like it a lot more than Happy Place, so we have that. Okay, next we have Watch Me. This is going into Quinn going into active labor while vocal adrenaline performed Bohemian Rhapsody at regionals, because it has Aaron Warner in it. And that's all I'm gonna say. Do I remember like anything about the plot of this book? No. Do I think there was much of a plot to this book? No. But was Aaron Warner in it? Enough said. Next we have Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I'm gonna put this in I Think You're Really Mean, but it's going at the top because I did still enjoy parts of it. I think R.F. Kuang is the coolest person to walk the earth. I am amazed. She's writing New York Times bestsellers, she's getting her PhD, she is like, she's just everything. Like, she's so cool. I really wanted to love Catabasis. I love the premise. The whole conceit of it is that like grad school is hell. It's about these two grad students, one of whom has accidentally killed their professor who is also their advisor, but she really wants that damn recommendation from him, so she journeys into hell to go rescue him. My problem with Catabasis is the Deus Ex Machina goes crazy in this book. Like, this character is just handed every single solution. The magic system was so cool. It was like built off logic. This book was just ripe with the opportunity to have these really cool solutions to the conflict, but instead it was just like, oh, here you go. And I was like, I don't like that. Everyone I Know is Dying by Emily Slapper. Oh, mamma mia, mamma mia. This is a fantastic book. I think it's super underrated. I've never heard anyone talk about it. I had never even heard of this. And I bought this book just because I saw the cover and it has the same painting as Sirens and Muses on it. And I was like, I love that book. I'm gonna love this book. It was like genuinely like top 5 favorite books of the year. It's really, I love the way it deals with those messy and ugly thoughts you can have as a woman in your early 20s, and especially the representation of disordered eating and depression was so true to life, and it just was really a striking book. Like, I think I want to talk about this book more. Like, genuinely, this is one of those books that I am like, this is why I want to like have this and like be able to like share about these books, because this book was phenomenal. I really liked it. If you like books with unlikable heroines and just a book about like feeling lost in your early 20s as a young woman, this is the one. It's so good. The Way I Used to Be is also going into the top tier. I can't say this full title every time I want to put a book up there. This book is absolutely gut-wrenching. It is so heartbreaking, but it is one of the best YA contemporary books I have ever read. I would definitely say to look up the trigger warnings before reading it, because it does deal with things in a very graphic manner. However, the writing is phenomenal. The characterization is so good. My heart breaks for the main character. She feels like such a real person, and it's heartbreaking, but it's really good. It's one of the best YA contemporary books I've ever read, like I said, so would highly recommend. Martyr is also going into Quinn and going into active labor while Vocal Adrenaline performs Bohemian Rhapsody at regionals. This is my favorite book of the year just because of the writing. The writing is phenomenal. It is so beautifully written. I sat down and I read the first half of this book in a day. I was absolutely hooked from the first page. Like, I just picked this up in the bookstore, read the first like sentence, and I was like, oh, I have to buy this book. And then I went home and I started reading it, and I was just floored by how good the writing was. It's about a young man who's a recovering addict and a poet, and he sets out to write a poetry collection about martyrdom, and in doing so he really brings up a lot of the stuff from his past. He goes to Brooklyn to this museum where a woman who is dying is putting on this piece of performance art where she's basically living out her last days in the museum and conversing with people about death. There's just so many interesting ideas about life and death and existence and meaning, and it just really made me think about so much. I was going through such a tough time when I read this book. Like, I was going through it, and this was the book. Honestly, this book probably was not like the most uplifting book to read, but I was so glad it was there. Like, I was really glad it was there. Next we have The Love Hypothesis. I'm gonna put this in well okay then, actually. I kind of enjoyed this. This one was kind of fun. This book was just like a solid romance to me. I mean, I didn't really go in with the highest of expectations. And I feel like, again, the main dude was like super underdeveloped. The one thing this book did that really bothered me was like, they're like, oh, he's such an asshole, he sucks. And then you meet him and he's like this really lovely, genuine, caring, understanding guy. And he never actually really is an asshole. I liked it, but it was just so predictable. Like, I saw the story coming from a mile away. I think out of book lovers and part of your, well, no, I can't say it, but The Love Hypothesis was one of the most predictable books I've ever read. But that being said, I'll be sat for the movie. Like, I'll be watching it, so I'll be there. Sunrise on the Reaping is going into I Think You're Really Mean, sadly, And even more sadly, I think it's actually on the border between I Think You're Really Mean and If I Could, I Would Give You a 0. Actually, I think, oh no, that hurts too much. That hurts too much. I have to put it in I Think You're Really Mean. I really wanted to love Sunrise on the Reaping. I was so excited for, like, when I first heard that we were getting a book about Haymitch, I was thrilled. I was so excited. And then when I heard that it was about Haymitch's games and not about the aftermath of Haymitch's games, I was a little less excited. I was a little more concerned. And then in actually reading it, like, all my concerns came true. I did not love the writing of this, especially when it came to the world building. I feel like it must be hard to write a Hunger Games novel because you do have to kind of, even though you're writing a new book in this massively popular, like probably like the modern classic, even though you're writing that, you still kind of have to operate under the assumption that not everybody knows what you're talking about and not everybody knows what the Hunger Games are, even though everybody knows what the Hunger Games are, and like we refer to things as being like the Hunger Games. Like it's genuine, it's a tough spot. But at the same time, I just felt like the world building was so rushed in here, and I just did not like that there were so many cameos from previous characters. I just felt like it would have been so much more interesting to introduce new characters and develop new characters. I wasn't really like having a fun time with the like who's who and like the oh look there's this character, and it also just like it doesn't make sense because why is Haymitch acting like he's met these people for the first time in Catching Fire when he clearly has met them before in this new book that you're adding on. And I just feel like the original trilogy, like The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Mockingjay, is perfect. Like I love that like it's my favorite, like one of my favorite trilogies of all time. Those are the books that got me into reading, and they just have so much to say. Those books are perfect. This one unfortunately just was not my thing. Next we have The Waves by Virginia Woolf. This is going into Quinn going into active labor while a vocal adrenaline performs Bohemian Rhapsody at regionals, because this is one of the most beautifully written books I've ever read. Like when I'm talking about books like, what books did I say? Like Sunrise on the Reaping and Part of Your World really uses language as just a vehicle to tell the story and completely neglects all of the really cool things you can do with words. Virginia Woolf, I mean, she's the opposite of that. She has so much packed into a single sentence. I just think about her writing and I just am in absolute awe of what she can do or what she could do with language. It's amazing, and I really loved The Waves. It was really great. Next we have Heart the Lover, which I think is between Quinn going into active labor and Gorgeous Gorgeous Girl, but I am gonna put it in Gorgeous Gorgeous Girl. It's another really short book. It is heartbreaking. It is absolutely like heart-wrenching, and again, it's not one of those books that just takes like this inherently sad thing and relies on its inherent sadness to make it sad. You actually really genuinely like, you care about the characters and the relationship that they have, and it really deals with those messy, complicated in-between relationships you can have with people where like, are you friends? Are you lovers? Are you exes? What are you? And it's one of my favorite things to explore, and I love thinking about this, is that like you know, you think that there's these clear-cut categories in your life of like you have family, you have friends, you have acquaintances, you have coworkers, you have people you hate, you have enemies, but it's never that simple. There's always people who exist in the gray area between those categories, and that's where things get really messy and really complicated, and it's also where things get really interesting. And so that is like something that I love reading about, and Heart the Lover just captures it so well. So I love this one. Next we have Better by Far. I'm also going to put this in Gorgeous Gorgeous Girl. Better by Far is a really great breakup novel. I really enjoyed it. It's about a woman who is, you know, going through the ending of her long-term relationship. She's a writer. She starts writing a book about it. The ending of her relationship brings up a lot of the trauma that she has with her grief over her mother dying when she was younger, and it's so good. Again, it captures those really complicated areas of life pretty well, and the writing was great. I really liked Better by Far. I don't really have much more to say on it. Next we have Divine Rivals. This one's going into I Think You're Really Mean because it's not fair and I think you're really mean. Divine Rivals I had such high hopes for, and the world building and the world itself was so interesting, and the characters and their dynamic had the potential to be so interesting. Their romance had the potential to be incredible. Like I was sat, I was ready, and I just felt so let down with the plot because there wasn't any. I just felt like nothing happened throughout the book, like nothing really progressed, and the romance and the relationship did progress, but in a way that the pacing was just so weird to me. I do want to read her other book though that just came out. I think it's called Wild Reverence, because I love her ideas. It's just I'm worried about the execution after reading Divine Rivals, but again, Divine Rivals was a debut novel, so there's that. And also the writing in this one was really good. I have to say it's a really well written YA fantasy. I just wasn't a huge fan of, you know, anything else, I guess. Sally Rooney Intermezzo is going in Well Okay Then. I liked this, but it took me like a full month to read. And granted, this was during a period where I was not eating. So, you know, I lost the ability to concentrate because that's what not eating does. A little PSA in the middle of this about this book. Yeah, like I probably could have enjoyed it much more. I probably could have finished it much faster. I probably could have focused on it and put my full attention to it. But I didn't have the mental clarity or focus to do so because I was not nourishing myself properly. Nourish your body so you can enjoy books, because that's the point of life. But Intermezzo, I will say, I really did enjoy it. I really like the characters. I'm actually going to put it in the top of Well Okay Then. I think it's between those two categories. I keep saying everything's between. I'm so indecisive. I really liked it. I was really fascinated by the characters. I actually really liked Peter's sections and the stream of consciousness. I just felt like at some points I could tell Sally Rooney was being like, see what I did there? Do you see it? Do you see what I did there? Look at this cool logic thing I did there. That's one of my biggest pet peeves when I'm reading, is when a book calls out its own cleverness. So I don't really love when books do that, so that's why it's there. And next we have Five Survive by Holly Jackson. This is going in Well Okay Then, and it's just because I don't remember much about it at all. I read it on audiobook. I remember that the main character's name was Red, and that's about it. But again, I was struggling. Susanna Clark Piranesi, this is going into Mamma Mia, Quinn going into active labor while vocal adrenaline performed Bohemian Rhapsody at regionals. This book made me rethink my entire existence. I feel like it's a really quick read because I read like the second half in one day, and I was just like in the park. It was beautiful. It was one of my favorite days of my summer. I finished it and I was like, whoa. Like, it made me think so much about identity for some reason. I just am always thinking about that because I have no idea who I am, and I'm worried that I'm just a shell of a person and that there's actually no personality, and that's scary. But anyways, this book made me really think a lot about that, and I think actually this book is what triggered that whole spiral. So thank you for that, Piranesi. You kind of ruined my life, but you were a really good book, so I have to put you in the big leagues with Quinn going into active labor while vocal adrenaline performs Bohemian Rhapsody at regionals. Blue Sisters is going into I Think You're Really Mean. I was disappointed by this one, and I was disappointed by Cleopatra and Frankenstein as well. I feel like these books, like, I will read everything Coco Mellors puts out, but I do feel like so much of her books are just like aesthetic and like New York and rich people doing drugs. All of her books feel like if Gossip Girl were masquerading as literary fiction, but part of the thing that's so good about Gossip Girl is that it just unabashedly is what it is. Like, it is so drama, it is so good, it is so the tea. Blue Sisters is like Gossip Girl if Gossip Girl bought themselves into Yale and got a philosophy degree. Again, it just feels like it relies on topics like grief and sisterhood to add depth, but it doesn't actually explore that depth. It just brings it up and it goes, here's a deep subject. Isn't my book deep now? But that being said, I do always I really enjoy Coco Mellors' writing. I think she has great ideas, and I will read everything she puts out. So who's the fool? Not me. But me. My Friends by Frederick Backman is going into Well Okay Then. I did really like the story, and it does hold a really special place in my heart because it was the first book I read in my apartment, which I moved into. Or actually, no, Blue Sisters was, but My Friends, I don't know, it was the first book I bought at my local bookstore when I moved into my apartment. So there's a special place in my heart for it, but it is going into Well Okay Then. Next we have Belladonna. Belladonna is going into I Think You're Really Mean. I was disappointed by this one. I also don't remember a single thing that happened. Now granted, I read this at a time, not when my mental focus was down, but when I was working at trying to recover, and my mind was pretty preoccupied with recovery. Recovery takes a lot of energy, and I was recovering all right from an eating disorder while I was reading this book, so my mind was preoccupied and I was preoccupied. But I don't really remember a lot, and I also remember being just a little underwhelmed by it. So yeah. Next we have The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue. This was one of my favorite books of the year. It's going into Quinn going into active labor while vocal adrenaline performs Bohemian Rhapsody at regionals. This, where did it go? Now she's in her rightful place. The Rachel Incident is a fantastic book. It's really short. It's about this girl named Rachel, as you can probably, garner from the title. She works at a bookstore, she's in university, and she starts crushing on her professor, and so she sets up this scheme with her best friend James to get her professor to notice her, but her professor doesn't notice her, he notices her best friend James, and so he starts on an affair with James, and thus really complicates the relationships between Rachel and her best friend, Rachel and her professor, and Rachel and her professor's wife, and they all kind of get mixed up and tangled, and it's such a good book. Again, it's about those like gray areas in relationships, and all the characters are messy, like they're messy boots, they're doing stuff, they're having a time, that's what I was gonna say. I don't know what that means, but they are having a time. I just really loved how much nuance there was in this book. And all the characters felt like very real people. This just felt like such a real situation. And it also, again, it really perfectly captures that feeling of being in your 20s and not having any idea what the fuck is going on with your life. You're like, how did I get here? Like, what is going on? It really perfectly captures that feeling of being in your 20s and like you're in this messy situation and you're like, I know my actions got me here, but how did I get here? Like, that is how it feels. Yeah, it's really great. I love it so much. And then we also have Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is going into Quinn going into active labor while vocal adrenaline performs Bohemian Rhapsody. I was at work listening to this on audio, and I was like, I had to like turn away so people wouldn't see me because I was crying. I don't think I've ever cried while reading an audiobook, or at least it's very rare that it happens. This book had me crying. Like, I was sobbing. It's a fantastic love story. It's a wonderful book. Read it. That's all I have to say. All Fours by Miranda July. This is going into Gorgeous Gorgeous Girl. I wouldn't say this is like in my top favorite books of the year, but it's definitely an honorable mention. It's really up there. It's a really great book about a woman being unhinged. And that's all we want from life. Like, that is great. And then finally, we have the last book that I finished in 2025. Bittersweet is gonna go into, I Think You're Really Mean, or Well, it's gonna go into Well Okay Then. This one was just okay. Basically, my problem with Bittersweet, as you can probably tell from the covers, which are directly beneath one another and look surprisingly similar, it really feels like The Rachel Incident, but it feels like a less good version of The Rachel Incident. Like, when I was reading Bittersweet, I really felt like it was just The Rachel Incident, and now looking at the covers directly underneath one another, I'm like, wow, she really is trying to be The Rachel Incident. Like, this is the same cover. This is the exact same cover and literally in a different font. So there we go. There are the 26 books I read, tier ranked. How are we feeling? I feel like this is honestly not a great reading year for me. It's a little bottom heavy, I have to say. I don't know if it's because there's this weird gap here, but it is really bottom heavy. Like, Well Okay Then and I Think You're Really Mean. Like, it's not even just bottom heavy, it's like mid to bottom heavy, and that's what upsets me. So here's to 2026 being a much better year. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it through to the end of this video, let me know what some of your favorite books you read were in 2025, or let me know some of your reading goals for 2026. I would love to know. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you very soon in my next one. Bye!